Welcome to a football show Thursday edition here on the 440 Sports Network, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. That is Nick Suss of the Tennessean. Pay for good journalism. I am Braden Gall. Good morning, fellas. Good to see you, Bustin. All right, so lots of stuff to do today on the show. The main topic, of course, a little bit later on will be primarily focused on free agency and where these rosters are located in the AFC South prior to the draft. Kind of benchmark setting here, if you were, about how well the Titans have done, what Jacksonville has done, what the Colts have done, what the Texans have done inside of the AFC South. So we'll kind of take a look at that as we're a couple of weeks out from the draft. I might ask you a few questions about best player available commentary from Mike Borgonzi, maybe a question about the Super Bowl, as we've already talked about it. And then there's a couple of roster moves that we'll get to, but also just overwhelming praise and adulation for the Tennessee Titans hiring Robert Saleh. So what exactly is happening? So we'll get to all of that today on the show. Nick, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing pretty all right. We're here. We're happy. It looks like I'm just wearing a white T-shirt I rolled out of bed in, and that's not necessarily true, but it's mostly true. So we're here.
This is your Twitter outfit. This is what you look like when you're on Twitter in the morning, first thing. when you go into the Nazi porn bar, this is how you dress.
I'm here to be seen. I'm here to be heard, and I'm here to answer whatever questions the good people in the comments have for us.
There you go. So good involved, of course, in the show. Thumbs up, notifications turned on YouTube. Share the product on Twitter and Facebook. And, of course, if you want to get involved, please ask those questions. We will get those questions answered throughout the course of the day. Has Nick ever had a day that was any better than just pretty all right?
I pride myself in answering that question honestly. I will tell you when I've had a great day. I'll tell you when I've had a good day. Somebody caught my weird Sly reference in the comments, so that's fun. I pride myself in being honest. So if I come on and say, man, it's a good day, you guys are going to know how special that is. So pretty all right should be the baseline. We shouldn't just be like, I'm doing good, because not everybody's always doing good. Not everybody's we know that.
I know it's a very dad thing to say, but I always go with better than I deserve to be, because like none of us should be alive, really. If you want to go real meta. But I'm curious, what gets you over? Like, is it a great story you've written? Is it a great scoop you figured out? Or is it like, man, I really, really dominated trivia last night? Or is it like I watched an amazing show with my wife? Like, what is the thing that gets you to just better than pretty all right?
This is probably an exaggeration, but my dad claims he's only ever seen me excited one time. So
for some reason, I've met him once. I've met him once, but I feel like he's right about this.
Yeah,
I trust him.
He claims the only time I was ever excited was when I got a PlayStation for Christmas one year. And I don't think I was all that excited in retrospect, but we'll see.
Sounds like he had a better perspective on the event than you did.
Probably. No, trust me, if I come in and say it's a great day, you guys will know I'm walking on Cloud 9.
Okay. All right. I think you float on Cloud 9. Do you walk on Cloud 9? Either way.
Depends on how light you are, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true. You're an offensive lineman, so as a feather. Here's the thing. Before we do any of this, I would love for all of you, we are filling up spots in our draft party. All of it's for charity, of course. And you can email incrowd@sinkersbeverages.com. Make sure you tell them which night you want to come, either Thursday night or Saturday night. Just makes it a little bit easier. But right now we have a pretty good amount of people signed up for Thursday night. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've got there's a smaller amount of seats, as it were, for the Saturday night event. That one's a little bit more expensive, but there's going to be tons of stuff, some giveaways, some grab bag stuff, some great food, a bourbon tasting, a Q&A, all that good stuff. Thursday night's going to be super fun. We're going to have a long live stream show in person at that event on Thursday night. All you can eat, all you can drink at ML Rose in East Nashville. You're also going to Shotgun Willie's Barbecue is the location for Saturday night. And there's going to be some special guests both evenings, so never know who's going to show up and what kind of fun we're going to have, but it's going to be great. And every penny goes to the Our Kids Foundation. This is our 5th year doing it. We've raised over, I think, $11,000 or $12,000 at last check, and we're going to try to outdo ourselves this year. There might be some new Tennessee Titans gear available. We're going to have some giveaways and some not trivia, but try to a contest on Thursday night for the first round. It's going to be a lot of fun. So in crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. In crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. Please set that up. Caribbean Daniel says we need to have a Skype table for us. I suppose here it's funny you say that. We are going to have, how about this? There is going to be visual insight into the Thursday night party for the entire party. How about that? Does that sound? You can do what you want with that. Sound good? Caribbean and the rest of you guys. Okay. All right. So in crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. In crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. So I'm going to do we'll do some like medium topics here, then some rapid fire topics, and then like the big main meteor topic. Okay. So first and foremost, the additions over the last couple of days. They add wide receiver KJ Osborn, they add quarterback Hendon Hooker, and they add running back Michael Carter. Carter seems like the one who actually is closest to being an NFL player.
Sure.
Group. But the reason it's interesting to me is that all three are depth pieces to create competition at spots either in the backfield or related to Cam Ward. And so it's all tied to one position. So is there any actual story here in your opinion, Nick, or is this just, hey, let's bring in some people, let's see if we can turn the bottom of the roster, and let's see if there's somebody that can earn a spot. Let's add some depth pieces. I have another comment about a separate story around Hendon Hooker in a minute, but just your quick analysis when you see those three, chances that any of them actually make the roster.
The closest thing to an actual story here is just, I'm not the first person to point this out, but you're reaching a numerical edge here. You are going to, assuming you make trades in the draft, you are going to run out of UDFA spots pretty quickly. I think right now, if you're factoring in 9 draft picks, there are 3 or 4 spots left for UDFAs. And if you trade back at some point and you accumulate more picks, you're really, really limiting what you're able to do with the developmental back end of the roster with rookies. And as we've been saying over and over again on this show, if your goal is to raise your floor, this totally fits the vibe. This is very similar to what we saw from the Washington Commanders 2 years ago when they seriously raised their floor in year 1 under Dan Quinn. It's that philosophy of make sure the worst player on your roster can play in the NFL. If you're not going to win with the top 6 players on your roster, make sure you have a competitive advantage at 42 through 53. And so do I end up thinking that any of these guys make the team? Look, if KJ Osborn's healthy and if he is able to produce at 1/3 of the clip he was able to produce at 3 or 4 years ago, this is a guy who could be that Van Jefferson, could be that Tyler Boyd, that bottom of the roster veteran that the Titans have had these last couple of years to kind of fill out the roster in case there's no 4th round pick who can do it. Michael Carter, we'll see. It's competition with Khalil Mullings. It's competition for that 4th running back spot with Julius
Chestnut. Yeah.
After that, Hendon Hooker is a. I don't want to be hyper cynical, but if there are moves coming post June 1, as Ed points to, or if there are moves that make it easier to add rookie talent later, you can do it. But Hendon Hooker does feel like hey, don't know if we'll be able to have a quarterback in for rookie camp, so let's go get a guy who can throw at rookie camp type situation. And that's not a bad thing to have. And if he sticks on your roster through August, cool. That's an interesting body to see compete.
Remind me again who Michael Carter's head coach was a few years ago.
Robert Saleh. It was Robert Saleh.
Robert Saleh.
Yeah.
The trend continues.
I pointed this out on Twitter yesterday. It is very, very funny. 2023 New York Jets, people who started a game, 7 of them currently play for the New York Jets. 5 of them currently play for the Tennessee Titans. We are getting close to the Titans overtaking Jets just 3 years later.
Question about Tony Pollard says, what's the money saved on Tony Pollard post-June? I don't have that in front of me. I'm trying to look it up right now.
I don't have it off the top of my head.
I don't know what the June date is.
So June 1 cuts, I'm sure most people know, there are usually provisions written into contract that if you're released after minicamp versus released before minicamp, it affects the salary cap different ways. So if you get the post June 1 designation, a lot of people have done this. It's just salary cap math and wizardry.
Yeah. It looks so his cap hits 9.2 this year. It looks like, according to Spotrac, and then it says it looks like there's a $2 million dead cap hit if they were to cut him. I assume, this offseason, which means that's about a $7 million savings, I think, if I'm reading this correctly. I feel like.
Yeah, and like people are pointing out that a lot of the training practice squad bodies from last year are they're going to make moves on this, but we can only operate with what the roster is right now. And a lot of the people that are being pointed out, sure, they were not Saleh people, but all of the bottom of the roster guys were brought in by Borgonzi and Brinker and this regime. So they are people. Like the Titans brought them here for a reason, and they're still
humans.
And they're still on roster for a reason, in the sense that a lot of these guys were futures contracts or extension from their practice squad deals, or they're here because the front office brought them here. So it's not as if they are total accidents of the past. The current regime did bring them in. So
yeah, they're cleaning those players. They're cleaning house on in another way. But yes. I'm curious. You're operating off, like, what is it, 90, 92, 93 spots? What's the total?
I think it's 91 within international, but if somebody in the comments knows more official.
That's the number you're working. When you say there's only like 3 or 4 spots for UDFAs, you're working off the 92 total number, right? Is what you're working on?
I believe so, but very cursory count. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and the point is still valid, which is the number is not relevant. The point is you're running out of space, which means there's going to be some churn at the bottom of the roster, which again is what you are hoping if you are a team trying to not win 3 games.
Yes. Yeah.
In this particular season. All right. So I just wanted to point that out. I do want to have some fun with this for just a moment. As a Tennessee alumni, I feel like I'm the one, like, I can make fun of my brother. I can make my daughter can make fun of her sister, but no one else can, kind of thing. So I feel like I can make fun of the obnoxious Vols fans finally getting their wish here to sign Alontae Taylor and Hendon Hooker in one offseason. Feels like 98, Nick. Look, I think those of us who were saying Will Levis was better than Hendon Hooker have been completely validated. And those of you saying Will Levis is not going to be an NFL quarterback so far might be validated. This is a little bit of everything is true. I just want Tennessee fans to look in the mirror and say, you were doing this because you loved Hendon Hooker. And that's okay. That's okay. Hendon Hooker was like 100 years old when he was drafted and had a torn ACL. And he has not really played in the NFL. He is a great member of a community. He's a great member of a locker room. He's a great member of a practice squad. And he will be a valuable asset in that role, but nothing more. So
we are talking about one player who is probably going to be traded at some point, and another player who has already been released 3 times. Yeah, so by the logic of the NFL, the one who you can get something on the trade market for is technically more valuable, but neither of them are high value commodities.
Yep. There you go. It's almost as if what they do in college is only like loosely translatable to what happens in the NFL. And you have to be like Joe Burrow level of good for those numbers to like translate directly to the NFL. See Josh Allen's career statistics at Wyoming. All right. How about this love of Robert Saleh in general? I am hesitant. I think it is like, I am of 2 minds on this, Nick. And this comes from Kyle Shanahan having a lot of positive things to say about a guy that, go figure, he's hired twice and has worked with a long time. I care less about, like, I do think there is a high opinion of Robert Saleh among executives, among front office people, among coaches, and among players. I think across the board, he sort of, in general, is a well-respected mind and person in the game. And so I think being able to attract the staff that he's attracted, I think, is a really big indicator as to how real and legitimate all that respect actually is. When the former guy who hired him a couple of times, or other people who have hired him a couple of times, say a bunch of positive things, I'm less inclined to think that that is creating some universal opinion of this person, as much as it is sort of doing lip service to your own abilities. Like, this is Kyle Shanahan kind of saying, like, I'm great at finding coaches and I have good friends, as much as it is anything else. How do you sort of parse out the, yes, this is just people saying positive things about their own decisions and their own friends, versus he wouldn't be able to attract all the things he's attracted. He wouldn't get a second job as a head coach. He wouldn't have the communication style. Like, some of it's very real and some of it's just lip service. How do you parse that out?
I don't know. Like, the problem we're going to encounter here is we're going to repeat a lot of things we said in December and in January, because the reason we knew Robert Saleh was going to get a second chance as a head coach is because nobody ever thought that the failures of the New York Jets fell squarely on his shoulders. And so we can talk about how he deserved the second opportunity. We can talk about how people think highly of him. We can talk about all of his hires. Fundamentally, this all goes back to he is a guy who got fired, and it was not a majority opinion of, ooh, that was deserved. Like, if it'd be one thing if there was this big, long rehab process, right? It'd be one thing if this was Matt Nagy, who got fired and went 4 or 5 years without doing another interview for a head coaching job, and went through the cycle and got the hire, and everybody's like, oh, why now? What has he done to change the opinion of him? I don't think Robert Saleh has changed anybody's opinion of Robert Saleh. I don't think anybody's opinion has changed even with respect to what happened in New York. Now, we can't ignore what happened in New York, and you guys have heard me on this show say over and over again that we have to factor in the fact that he's a losing head coach in New York, and that there were struggles on the offensive line, and there was bad evaluation at quarterback with Zach Wilson, and we can talk about all of these things over and over again. But fundamentally, I think we can all recognize that the opinion of Robert Saleh in 2026 is not all that different than the opinion of Robert Saleh in 2021 when he got to New York. And what he did last year as the defensive coordinator in San Francisco, impressive, but not surprising. Like, not super illuminating, oh, this guy made it work with injured talent, because there were a lot of injuries in San Francisco his first stint, and maybe they weren't going 12-5 with injuries in the past, but he has dealt with this before and had some pretty solid defenses. So I don't know. It's hard to be like, oh, the opinion of him is so changed, because I don't think it's changed in the last 5 years, let alone 2 years.
I agree. It's weird. This is a weird, I'm going to call in some college experience, because that's where I have the most experience covering college coaching searches, reputations, sort of background conversations. I know you have some experience in this as well. Every now and then, or not just every now and then, like when you're in this field, there are, because like picking a general manager or an athletic director or a head coach is still like largely a totally inexact science where we're all guessing. Like the guys who make millions of dollars make these decisions, and they guess wrong all the time. Same thing with player evaluations in the draft, to be honest. And every now and then, there are people who just sort of have created this consensus opinion. And it's whether it's through relationships, conversations, meetings, interpersonal skills, whatever, performance on the field, of course. Like I remember, I'll throw a couple of college names out, and you probably in a couple of different phases of life. So Lincoln Riley was a coordinator at East Carolina and got the coordinator job at Oklahoma. And everyone in my business, and I don't know where you were at that time. This would have been like, more than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were in the field yet, but almost I cannot remember talking about an unproven head coach with as much certainty and as much positivity as people talked about Lincoln Riley before Bob Stoops announced his retirement at Oklahoma. And the amount of it was just like everyone was like, this dude is going to be good. He is very smart. He knows the system. He does this and this with the offense. He's done this. Here's the track record. And it turns out like he's been a very, very good coach up until like the last 2 years. And so I'm going to go with Dan Mullen as another one. There's a lot of media people, myself included, who think very highly of Dan Mullen, the head football coach. There's a lot of fans who see what happened at Florida and think he's a dumpster fire and a terrible head football coach because he couldn't necessarily recruit to Gainesville. The problem is that Florida finished in the playoff rankings all 3 years that Dan Mullen was there. He's the most successful coach in the history of Mississippi State football. He's a little bit of an abrasive a-hole at times and can tell you about how much he knows about college football. I've interviewed him plenty of times in person, and he's very aloof. He's very confident in his own abilities. I never thought for a second he wouldn't get another head coaching job after going to ESPN, because the reputation and the thoughts of him are just sort of like, that guy's good. And he hasn't, nothing's changed, right? His job at Mississippi State, his job at Florida. He goes to UNLV and he's great in 1 year. And so I say that to be like, there's just guys that have built this thing up. And it's because good, smart football people just have a respect for him. Now, that doesn't mean that he is going to be a championship caliber coach. I just gave you Dan Mullen and Lincoln Riley, two guys that have not gotten to the top of the mountain in their fields. I don't know what Saleh's upside is going to be. I don't know, but I think all of it's real. I just don't necessarily need Kyle Shanahan specifically to tell me this, but I do respect Shanahan. I just think it's all very, very real. And I think you don't get Brian Daboll, you don't get Gus Bradley, you don't get free agents, you don't get a second job this quickly if all of it's not coming from a place of sort of like genuine appreciation based on actual merit.
Yeah.
And so, it, again, doesn't mean he's going to win a championship, but I think all the reason that we were all so high on him immediately after Brian Callahan was fired, like he was one of the top 3 names like the day after Brian Callahan was fired. And so there's a reason those guys kind of end up in those spots inside of these conversations. If that, I know that's a really media kind of way to explain this, but that's my perspective on it.
No, I think we're kind of saying the same thing when we talk about this here, which is there are some people who their failures do not affect the way they are viewed to the same extent that others do. Like, if we want to use Callahan for an example, and this isn't to rag on him, it's just the most recent example we can point to.
Right.
His reputation of quarterback whisperer was docked by the lack of success the Titans offense had under his regime. Saleh's reputation of great defensive schemer and really good culture builder was not at all docked because that did happen with the Jets. The Jets' failures had nothing to do with the things that he was strong at. And that means
it
that
feels very Dan Mullen. It feels very Dan Mullen. Like his offenses at Florida were outstanding.
Yes.
Like,
Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts and Malachi
SEC
Tony. That was a good offense. I saw that team live. That was a really good team. Yeah, I am not surprised that Saleh's reputation is strong. A, because we spent a long time reporting about this in the fall and winter and got to learn a lot about the way people think about him, but also B, because, yeah, the thing that he was expected to do, he kind of did in New York, and the thing that the Jets were expected to do, the Jets did.
Would the perception of him be different if he was fired by a team that was more competent or with a better reputation? I think that's interesting. And Eddie does point this out. I think he says culture builder was docked, and I'm still wary of the Jets locker room was a toxic mess by the end. We've talked about the Jets thing ad nauseum, like the fact that the owner's son was running it like a Madden franchise as a part of this, but like, not something Saleh. There might be a little bit of that experience in Tennessee. What I think is interesting is I'm okay with people saying, yeah, I need to see more of that element here. Yeah. But that, strangely enough, Eddie, I think that is still part of how people respect him. They respect being around him. They respect sort of the communication skills and the interpersonal skills and all these other things. And somebody said, Big 2033, the only thing that worries me about Saleh is that he seems to have a nice guy reputation as well. I think he is you tell me what you think about this. I think there's lots of hard ass in him. Like
I do too.
He has this like soft family guy thing, but he strikes me as Vrabel on the practice field. Like he strikes. I do not think nice guy. I don't get nice guy when I interact with him.
But to Eddie's point, and this is not a negation so much as it is just a argument. Players don't like being in toxic cultures. Like people hate being around toxicity in a locker room, and people wouldn't be rejoining with Saleh from that Jets team if they thought the culture problems were his fault. So I'm not saying that totally negates your point. It's true that there were culture problems there. I do have a little bit of a logical gap saying that the inability to create a winning culture was because of his deficiencies. There may have been deficiencies, but I don't necessarily think that he's the one to blame.
Yeah. Easier to scrub the stink off, says Richard, because the Jets have been so inept. I agree. Big 2033 says the nice guy rep definitely hurt Callahan. I don't think it only hurts you as after things go wrong. like everybody loved Callahan from a communication standpoint. I enjoyed speaking with like he gave us better answers about certain things that most coaches will never give you. That should help you with when it comes to the press and to the media. But as soon as things never got better or they got worse or they were trending in the wrong direction, everybody was like, well, he's too nice of a guy, I think. So, all right. Well, I wanted to, that came up again, and I thought I wanted to get your opinion because I like talking about this weird psychology stuff with you. And so I appreciate it. We'll get to some other things here quickly. All right. So obviously Sinkers Beverages, we appreciate their sponsorship here. So go to the store up there in East Nashville, 5-time liquor store of the year. Of course, you guys know the deal. But draft party, charity event, all the money goes to our kids. ML Rose on Thursday night, the 23rd, doors at 6:30. We're going to, the draft starts at 7. We're going to have a contest that's going to have a really cool giveaway. All you can eat, all you can drink. Tons of local craft beer, of course, which you can also get at Sinkers Beverages. And be some special guests. And I think some live content that will be available to all folks if you are outside of the area as well, but you got to be there to have the fun. And so, of course, that ticket's $40. In crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. Every penny goes to charity. I know you guys can chip in a few extra bucks to come hang out and have a good time and help the kids of Middle Tennessee. And then Saturday night, we're going to have a reporter Q&A. Off the record, Paul Kaharski, Nick Suss, Steve Cavendish, myself, James Foster, some other special guests may be there, of course. We're going to have some gift bag giveaways, like grab bag stuff with lots of really cool items. I've seen some of the items that are going to be in there. Could be some new Tennessee Titans logos as well, so it's going to be a lot of fun. That ticket, of course, is $75. A 5-flight bourbon tasting at Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Again, RSVP, please. In crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. It's in the show notes for YouTube, and it's in the show notes for podcasts as well. Quickly, a couple other small things here before we move on to our larger conversation. And that is the thing I've been thinking about, and I talked about it with PK. Borgonzi hammered best player available, best football player. We're going to take the best player, blah, 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 blah. If sort of the mocks and the predictive markets hold true with Fernando Mendoza, Arvell Reese, and David Bailey going third to the Cardinals do kind of hold the key to all of the directions of the top 10 in terms of the draft strategy. If they are choosing between Ruben Bain and I'm going to say Jeremiah Love and Sonny Styles, I don't know how Mike Borgonzi or anyone else can step to a podium after the draft and say that Ruben Bain is a better prospect, a better football player, the best overall player when compared to Sonny Styles or Jeremiah Love. That doesn't mean it's the wrong choice. It doesn't mean he's the wrong pick. It doesn't mean that putting positional value and premium value on positions as part of your best available isn't okay. I think it's fine. But you got to say that. I don't know how Borgonzi can step to the podium and say, we passed on Jeremiah Love or Sonny Styles to draft Ruben Bain because he was the best player available. I just don't see how that's a thing you can do. But I am torn on what they think of him. I think they're torn like the rest of the world is torn on him, which is that he's a good player. He's going to make a defensive line better. Not 100% sure where he plays. Maybe he's limited in certain situations. Is he more of a 12 to 15 type of prospect in terms of rankings? Where are you at on Bain versus best player available from Mike Borgonzi?
Oh, I mean, this is not me supporting the logic. It's just very easy to come up with the logic. I'm struggling to see how you would struggle with this. How do you pick saying Ruben Bain was the best player available? We put on the tape and he was the best player in the college football playoff. There you go. Best player available. He produced at a better rate for his position than Jeremiah Love did, than Sonny Styles did.
That's not true.
It is true.
No,
he produced. He put up numbers. He was a game wrecker.
Sonny Styles missed 1 tackle the entire season.
2 in the same game against Ruben Bain's team.
Jeremiah Love's numbers were better than Christian McCaffrey on an efficiency standpoint. Yes, he's got the yards per carry and the EPA and all this other stuff. The efficiency numbers, they're up there above Bijan. They're above McCaffrey. They're as good as anybody else. Like, you cannot argue that. Again, I'm not saying he's the wrong pick. I want to make sure I'm clear.
All I'm saying is it's very easy to argue it. You say we watched the tape and he popped off the tape in a way these guys didn't. Sonny Styles didn't miss any tackles. I watched a lot of Ohio State games last year. I don't remember him popping. I remember him being competent. I remember him being not mistake maker guy. Jeremiah Love had a lot of long pop runs. He really popped off the tape, but on a per play basis, I don't remember him always being the guy I was drawn to. He should have been, but I don't remember him always being the focus. Anytime I watched Miami football, all of my eyes were on Ruben Bain. I wasn't looking at Akeem Mesidor. I wasn't looking at Keontae Scott. All I'm saying is this is a very easy argument to make. Is it true? Is it fair? No. But you're like, oh, I can't conceive of this argument. It's very easy to conceive of this argument. It's very easy to make this. It's like,
I'm going to go, I don't want to go full Stillman here, but that's horseshit. Like, there's no way that Ruben
just made
Bain
the argument.
No, you have said
it's good. I'm not saying it's a good argument, but you said it's hard to make the argument. I just made it.
Okay. Then you know what I am getting at here, which is there is no way that Ruben Bain is graded out as a higher quality prospect relative to the fourth pick in the draft, relative to the other players in this draft, which is all that really matters. It's all about the players in this draft. Jeremiah Love, as you have talked to experts and we have talked to people around the league, he grades out as one of the he's maybe not as high up on the board as like a couple of the top running backs picked in the last few drafts, and he's in that category. Ruben Bain is not in that category from pass rushers or defensive ends. He just doesn't grade out that way.
Totally.
And again, I want to make sure I'm clear on this. This is not a don't draft Ruben Bain take. This is not a taking Ruben Bain as a bad choice take. This is I am listening to what the general manager has to say and applying those words and logic to the rankings of the players. Sonny Styles might be the best inside backer that has been in a draft class in like a decade. You cannot say that about Ruben Bain. It's not an arguable position. It doesn't mean taking him is the wrong choice. I want to make sure I'm clear on this. So because this is the time of year where we have to guess at what everyone's saying, I feel like if you are sticking true to those words and what they actually mean, not some twisted, warped version of how you would argue it, not you, but them, then the choice is between Sonny Styles and Jeremiah Love if David Bailey's off the board. Because I don't think Ruben Bain is a top 10 prospect by most NFL teams. I don't think he is graded that way. I think he's graded at like number 11 and 12 for a lot of teams.
And be that as it may, when you say we're going to take the best player available, that does not mean we're going to take the best player graded. That does not mean we're going to take the highest projected player. It's very easy to make the argument. I'm not saying it's the correct argument, but it's very easy to make the argument that based on the tape, based off of the play we have from him, he has been the best player. Will he be the best player? Future tense? That's what scouting is for, and I agree with you that he's probably down around 7th, 8th, 9th among actual top prospects on the board. But if you're looking at this from the perspective of who has played football the best, last year Ruben Bain was a unanimous All-American, was he not?
I'm sure.
This is a guy who, at the very least, was a consensus All-American, maybe a unanimous All-American. It is not hard to argue that you could see him as the best player available. That's all I'm saying. It's a defensive. If Borgonzi said we're going to take the best player available, and then they picked Ruben Bain, I would not be like, but you said best player available. I'd have other questions, but I wouldn't be like, man, you said best player available, and you picked somebody who was not the best. Like, dude was an All-American defensive end on a team that went to the national championship game.
Eddie is nailing it here. I'm not denying the talent, but taking an off-ball linebacker or running back at number 4 is a hard sell. Yes, I know they're freaks and good players, but it's still hard. Again, if Mike Borgonzi comes up and says, in our evaluation of players, we placed a premium on certain positions because those positions should have a premium placed upon them, that is the rational argument to make here and say, look, we have a giant hole at this position. He completes our defensive line. He's the best pass rusher available on the board, and we value that position more than we value running back or linebacker. That is totally fine with me. I have no problems with that. I just he was not like he played well in the playoff. So did David Bailey. Like David Bailey had great games in the playoff. This is going to sound and turn into an anti-Ruben Bain stance. It's not. I'm trying to figure out what they think of him. Because he's a prospect that creates a lot of divergence of opinions. There are teams that have him off the board altogether. That may be wrong. There are teams that think the arms are a major problem. There's teams that think the length is a major problem, that he's going to have to slide inside. There's the long-term projections are there. That's the question, is what does he look like long-term? I don't think there's any of that to be said about Jeremiah Love or Sonny Styles. And so it from the truest sense of the word, you can argue anything. I could sit here and be like, well, the sky's not blue because the water droplets in the clouds reflect light and your eyeball sees the blue tone through the and that might be technically true, but it's total garbage. Like, it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's, you can argue anything as long as you're correct, as Thank You for Smoking taught me a long time ago.
All I'm saying here is that if you're going to speak in absolutes and say, oh, best player available means it's you can't defend the Bane pick, or oh, it's harder to defend the Bane pick, all I'm saying is it's very easy to do. I'm not saying that's where they're leaning, and I'm not trying to defend and argue for Ruben Bane. People know I like Ruben Bane. I'm high on Ruben Bane. I'm higher on Ruben Bane personally than I am on Arvell Reese, and that has not changed since January. That has not changed since November.
I stick with that too.
I feel these ways about these players, but the simple reality here is best prospect and best player are definitionally two different things. Ruben Bane is not the best prospect available. He arguably could be the best player available, and those are two different things.
And like, the defense of the pick is very easy to me. Like, I don't have a problem defending. Like, that's it's more about connecting the pick with the language beforehand in a time where everyone is like intentionally lying and misleading and misdirecting on everything. Sometimes people say the truth, like, because they're just trying to be like, oh, I just think he's a really good player. I think what's interesting, and somebody said this in the comments, and I this might be premature of me to say, I do think the coaching staff is higher on Bane than the front office,
which is not abnormal.
If I had to guess, and I'm going to call that informed speculation, because the front office, they have to think about other things. That's all. Okay. Sinkers Beverages, of course, everybody, please go check out Sinkers Beverages, and incrowd@sinkersbeverages.com is the email address. Please RSVP for the draft party Thursday and Saturday night coming up in April. Going to be a ton of fun. Okay. Looking at free agency here. So I wanted to see what the expert interwebs were saying about the AFC South. And it's really fascinating to look at the evaluation of the AFC South through free agency to this point of the offseason from a roster management standpoint, because there are many opinions. Jacksonville did largely nothing, but is still viewed, because they manipulated the compensatory pick process, that to probably get 3 draft picks out of the deal, and because they were so good last year at 13 wins, that they clearly had the best free agency class. Like, I think ESPN had them at 9, had the Titans at 28. If you look at CBS, for example, the Titans were one of the top 5 free agent periods of the entire NFL. If you look at the consensus broadly, I think the consensus is that the Tennessee Titans did more to help their roster than any other team in this division, with a lot of questions around the Colts. We'll get to the Texans and the Jags and maybe dive into the specifics. But do you think it is a fair description to say, obviously it's the easiest to improve, seeing how they were bad, and the Colts were very good with Daniel Jones but finished with 8 wins. Both the Texans and the Jags were very good teams last year, so not a lot of room for improvement. It's fair to say the Titans have by far the most improved roster through free agency in this division, but does that make it, like, does that mean they've made up any ground on these teams? That remains to be seen.
I think that the easiest way to put this is that free agency does a better job of exposing what you needed than it does of exposing what you've done. And I think it's very clear and obvious to say that the Titans needed to do the most in this division. So the only real thing that we can say with certainty is that of these 4 teams, the Titans needed to do the most and didn't fail on the account of doing things. The Texans and the Jaguars needed to do very little. The Colts needed to do a lot when it came to deciding if they wanted to keep a core nucleus together. They didn't have to do as much when it came, or lost the opportunity at a certain point to do as much when it came to filling other holes. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of who we like, who we dislike, what moves could flip the division, really the only thing we can say when we're speaking about the quartet as a whole is that one team needed to use free agency and the other 3 teams had the luxury of being selective about their use of free agency. So the Titans did what they needed to do. Did they do it successfully? We'll get into that.
Yeah, and then I think what was interesting about the ESPN evaluation was just the general, like, they really liked John Franklin Myers as a move, but had a lot of questions about the value of anything else. And I just, to your point about showing us what they needed to do, I side with you. You went and got, you were such a bad team that you went and got proven veterans to kind of put in positions to elevate your floor, like we've talked about, and I think they did a pretty good job of that.
Yeah.
I don't have, and the choices, frankly, seem fairly logical. We could kind of disagree with certain names, as we've talked about in the past, like, oh, you might have signed this guy instead of that guy. Clearly, the offensive line is a big part of this conversation, and that they had a plan going into free agency for the offensive line, and they did not accomplish their goals, and are now getting to second, third, fourth options in that, whatever those look like, whether it's rookies starting, signing someone after the draft like a Zeitler, seeing what your options are, maybe trades, acquisitions during the summer. Like, there's all kinds of ways to change your roster after the draft. But it's very clear that they, they've said as much. Like, we had a plan. We didn't get to follow through on that plan on the offensive line. So that's a big miss. I think the rest of it, though, I think is very logical, very predictable, very solid, very sound. And I think they are the most improved roster in the AFC South. I'm curious about Jacksonville, but I think, based on where this team was, I don't understand saying that the Titans, even if you're overpaying for Flott or Taylor or Robinson, I don't understand saying that this free agency class is one of the worst 4 or 5 free agents classes in the NFL. And I'm not trying to be a homer here because I'm in Nashville covering the Titans, but like, I just don't, because I'd like to think that I'm critical when I'm supposed to be. I think they kind of systematically went and got pretty good players and improved their roster. To what point, I don't know, but I think they deserve more credit than that. And I think if you look at the consensus opinions around from the experts, it is generally positive around the Tennessee Titans. There's a few that just go, we don't understand what y'all are doing. But I think the consensus is that they did a pretty good job. And I think they did gain ground on the rest of the division, especially if the Colts take a step back, which is possible. I think it's very real that they could have a better record than the Colts this year. Now, again, draft and there's more moves coming, but like right now, I don't think that's crazy to say.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is off topic, but on topic, and this is venturing into geek corner category. So I had to go write up some geek corner,
like a mini geek corner.
A mini geek corner. This is an impromptu, not planned geek corner. So I spent a lot of time earlier this week looking at the 2006 Titans free agency class, which is largely considered the best free agency class the Titans have ever signed, maybe the best offseason the Titans have ever had. For those of you who don't know the names off the top of your heads, that's the year that Kevin Mawai and Chris Hope and David Thornton signed as free agents and were all very successful Titans for a good long while. And the year they drafted, among others, Stephen Tulloch, Cortland Finnegan, Vince Young, Lendale White, etc. Kerry Collins came in later in the offseason as well. Pretty strong offseason overall. I was trying to think of, okay, well, what happened there that allowed those free agents to be difference makers in a way that maybe the 2024 class, the Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard, L'Jarius Sneed, et cetera, weren't able to transform the franchise. And pretty much what it comes back to is the thing I say every week on this show. And at this point, we're going to have to come up for a name for this because I need to just have a shorthand. There are 5 positions that probably matter in the National Football League. And if you are set at 3 of them, you probably have a chance to be pretty good. So if you look at what the Titans did in 2006, those free agents they signed, Chris Hope, safety, not a position that matters. Kevin Mawai, center, not necessarily a position that matters. David Thornton, inside linebacker, not necessarily a position that matters. How were they set up at those other positions? The 2005, the year before, they drafted Michael Roos and Dave Stewart and fixed the tackle situation. At cornerback that year, they grabbed Cortland Finnegan, had a all-pro caliber corner there. Free agency the year before, they added Kyle Vanden Bosch and had a very strong player coming off the edge. There are 3 of your 5 positions, and you gambled on Vince Young, and he was good for as long as he was good, and we don't need to re-legislate the Vince Young era too much.
Also, I like the Courtney Roby, Brandon Jones back-to-back third-round wide receiver selections, 2005, neither of which I think played much at all.
And so pretty much what I'm getting at is, with the exception of the edge rusher, which has been true of this franchise for a very, very long time, they attacked the core positions through the draft. They hit on these core positions more often than they missed. And that enabled these free agents at non-premium positions to be incredibly successful, because all they had to do was come in and do their job. They didn't have to do more than their job at a position where you probably can't affect the game quite as much. Compare that to 2024. Calvin Ridley was brought in off the street to be your fix at receiver. L'Jarius Sneed was brought in via trade to be your fix at cornerback. You didn't address the right tackle position. If Stillman's watching, I'm saying it, Stillman. I'm saying it. You didn't address the right tackle position, and you guessed wrong on J.C. Latham being able to be a full-time left tackle on transition. You did not have any attempt to fix the edge rusher position that offseason, and you were betting on Will Levis at quarterback, and you bet wrong. So that free agency class, even though Pollard and Cushenberry and a lot of these players, Chidobe Awuzie, had promised to be veterans who could come in and step in and fix things, they didn't, because the 5 positions that are core competency were not addressed properly through the draft and were not homegrown. What does that mean for now? Let's go around the board. Quarterback. How do we feel about Cam Ward? Totally depends on how you feel about Cam Ward. I'm not going to get into that. We've done 30 shows on this. Go listen to any other football show we've ever done. Wide receiver, we still don't know. They still have not gone out and gotten a number 1 that they could develop through the draft. Is that a next year thing? Is that a this year thing? We shall see.
Let's add that, like, just for sake of the conversation. Cam Ward, of course, very high draft capital, obviously.
Yes.
Wide receiver, I'm going to go with the top 4 and say they spent a ton of money on Ridley and Robinson, and then drafted 2 fourth-round picks with DK and Io Manor.
Yes.
Offensive, you continue. Just add where they got them from.
Offensive tackle, first-round pick in J.C. Latham, and a high-money free agent in Dan Moore. Austin Deculus seems like he'll be the swing tackle this year. If that matters to you, it probably doesn't factor into the conversation we're having right now.
No.
Edge rusher, you have not used high capital on a number 1. You have arguably used high capital on a number 2 with Femi Oladejo. You acquired Jermaine Johnson in the trade market. And then at cornerback, you are betting on the 2 big money free agents you went out and added in Alontae Taylor and Cordell Flott. So where have they homegrown success at these core positions? Potentially quarterback and potentially right tackle. Now, all of this is an argument for build your roster the other way. Draft the quarterback last. Don't draft the quarterback first. We don't need to re-legislate that.
No, I don't want to.
All this means is, for this class to be successful in the way the 2006 class was, and this isn't the only one. We can go 10 years later. We can look at the 2016 free agency class when they brought in Ben Jones instead of Kevin Mawai, and they started rebuilding from that place. Go ahead.
Does PPR do it enough? The Nick Suss's premium position ratio. Does PPR do enough, or does it need to have a homegrown descriptor on it, like HPPR? Like, does it need
workshop it? I do.
Does
like
it need to have a home? My point is, like,
unfortunately, unfortunately, PPR has another connotation in the National Football League already.
That's why I like it. It's just in fantasy. Like, who cares?
But whatever we want to call it, the positional value index or the positions that matter index or whatever.
PVI. The PVI sounds like a personal problem.
Sus index, if we want to call it that way. But
Suss's premium ratio. I don't know. I like ratio because it's about like, of these 5 positions, which have, I'm going to ballpark like 3, 6, 9. Like, you're talking about probably 20, 25 players, maybe more fit into this. So you're talking more than half of your active NFL game day roster. But what you're talking about is, of those premium 20 to 25 players, how many of them are homegrown, and did you develop on your own to some degree, right?
And let's use the division, since we're talking about it, as our guide here. Jacksonville Jaguars. Quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, homegrown. Wide receiver number 1, in theory, should be Brian Thomas or Travis Hunter. In practice, it might be Jacoby Myers. But either way, they have definitely taken draft attempts to home grow that. Offensive tackle, off the top of my head, I cannot remember who their left tackle is right now. I know that they have had homegrown players in the past. I can't remember who their left tackle is right now. If somebody wants to let us know, is it Walker Little?
Walker Little, or formerly of Cam Robinson. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Edge defender, they have Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker. You've already got your 3 out of 5 ratio there. And then cornerback, in the past, they have taken some big swings on early first-round picks. Is it Travis Hunter? Who knows? But the Jaguars definitely fit this model. You go to the Houston Texans, CJ Stroud at quarterback, homegrown option. Nico Collins is wide receiver 1, homegrown option.
Derek Stingley,
homegrown option. Will Anderson, homegrown option. Yeah. And the offensive tackle thing, they're the Houston Texans.
Still in progress.
But 4 out of 5 probably makes you a very, very good team. Indianapolis Colts, here's where it gets weird.
Wide receiver, yes.
Offensive tackle, yes. Cornerback, no. Sauce Gardner.
But that would require you to have corners on the roster,
Sauce Gardner, very much not homegrown. And edge rusher, not at the moment. I think Woody Pay just left in free agency.
Yeah.
So
Cole Van Lanen, is that the starting left tackle for the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Sounds right. I'll take it.
We're trusting you, Joe.
But so pretty much what we've just done here is, which team is the strongest in the division based off of this ratio? The Houston Texans. Followed closely by Jacksonville, followed by Indianapolis, followed by the Titans. And I think that's how most people would rank this division right now. I'm not saying this is a perfect metric. I'm oversimplifying football to a dangerous degree.
Well, what I find really interesting is the Houston-Jacksonville conversation. And what I find really interesting is I love the Reed Blankenship signing. I think he really adds value to their secondary, an already very good secondary that was missing that strong safety piece. I don't know how good the offensive line fits together yet, but they continue to try shit on their offensive line. And adding Wyatt Teller and Braden Smith and kind of retaining some pieces, like they've thrown a bunch of things at it, and I think it should be better this year, but we'll see. But the rest of the team is so good. They added David Montgomery as well. And because Jacksonville didn't really do much, like they lose Devin Lloyd, they lose Travis Achan, and Greg Newsome, but they're going to get 3 draft picks, I think, in 27 from a compensatory standpoint. So that was kind of their plan, is to do very minimum. I think like Chris Rodriguez was like their only real signing. Like they didn't do anything. And so I'm inclined to say Houston is 1, Jacksonville 2. I could be convinced otherwise. Like always this time of the year, I have no idea what the Indianapolis Colts are doing or going to do or going to be. I have no clue. There's players I like, a lot of B+, a lot of C+ and C- on this roster too. Spent a ton of money, of course, to keep Daniel Jones and Alex Pierce, Arden Key, whatever. Their secondary is a total giant question mark. So I don't know what to make of the Colts, but that's kind of
for what it's worth with the Colts. We can also mention that they did something very similar to the Titans, which is reunited Lou Anarumo with a lot of players he's familiar with.
That's true.
I believe Cam Taylor-Britt and Akeem Davis-Gaither and that sort of moves to reacquaint him that way. But yeah, again, if you guys have a good name for this theory in the comments, please let us know. But it's just it's hard for me to look at what the Titans have done and look at the most successful free agent classes this team has ever signed and not see it as you are still chasing the fixes for the 3 cataclysmic draft whiffs of the past we've talked about so many times. You're still chasing an offensive tackle. You are still chasing a wide receiver. You are still chasing a cornerback. Those are 3 of the 5 positions that matter. You are constantly looking for win now replacements, and then you spend your money on the win now replacement at cornerback, so you don't feel the need to draft a cornerback. And so now you're down picking a cornerback in the 4th round, and that's a harder place to hit. And you're stuck in this cycle. It's going to be tougher, especially if, I think I said this last week, let's say you pick Jeremiah Love. Next year, you still need a wide receiver 1. You still need an edge number 1. Dan Moore is at an option year in his contract. You might need a left tackle. J.C. Latham is coming up on the 5th-year extension conversation. You might need a new right tackle at some point, depending on his progress. You are setting yourself up to pick Jeremiah Love, to pick Sonny Styles, and then to need to replace the best player on the field at 3 of the 5 most important positions pretty immediately, while also betting on Alontae Taylor in the course of a 3-year contract, justifying being a number 1 for the first time. It's a lot to ask.
I totally subscribe to your theory on you cannot add a giant premium need to 3 premium needs for next year's draft. I don't think you can solve tackle and edge later in the draft, but you have to pick something. Whether you're picking an edge at 4 or not, I still think you can fix receiver and corner with picks 35, 66, and 101. I think you can. Yeah, I mean, look, AJ Brown would have solved the problem. The number of receivers that are number 1s that get picked after round 1 is long and very interesting. So I think you can. I feel comfortable saying you're going to need a left tackle next year in the draft. So I agree that you have to solve those problems. You also have to be smart. This goes right back to our best player available thing. And if you think Jeremiah Love and Sonny Styles are just that much better at their positions, and even though they're not premium, like you got to do it. I don't think index works because it's not an index. Index is sort of like a list of different it's a ratio. So I think it has to end with an R. It's a ratio here. It's about what percentage of your premium positions are homegrown, and even then inside of those 25 total players, what percentage of them are homegrown. So we could do the SPR if you want to do the sus premium ratio. I don't know if that sounds right.
It could be
we can keep working on it.
The PHR, premium homegrown ratio.
Okay.
PPHR, premium position homegrown ratio.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like sus needs to be proprietary. I think we need to get sus in there somehow and then start charging people for it.
Yeah.
Don't just go to Pro Football Reference and look it up. That's boring. Just listen to Nick on it.
It's such a subjective ratio too. Of us sitting here being like, is Cole Van Lannon good?
Right. That's very scientific. It is technically it's the HPR is what it is, which is also like half of Nashville's lots, which is a split lot. It is an HPR, which is the homegrown premium ratio, is what it is. Or a PHR, a premium homegrown ratio, as you said. But HPR is already a thing that people know. So, all right. Anything else on this the free agency stuff within the division that strikes you as worth noting here?
I like the Texans' moves. I mean, we
do too.
We didn't talk too much about this, but Reed Blankenship, Logan Hall, Braden Smith, Evan Brown, Foster Moreau, Wyatt Teller. I think the Texans are going to get some pre-season Super Bowl love, and I think it will probably be justified. A lot of that hangs on the shoulders of how good CJ Stroud can be. But I do think that is a really very strong roster that they have constructed.
I agree. I would pick the Texans to win the division right now. And I think going into the playoffs last year, I thought maybe that defense could lead them. I think I had Rams, Texans in my Super Bowl picks when the playoffs started. Stroud still in that sophomore slump, still a thing. And so we'll figure that out. The offensive line needs to be fixed, but it seems like they've thrown a lot of resources at it this offseason. So, I think what's crazy to say is if Daniel Jones is healthy the entire season, and now we're getting more into like the hierarchy of the AFC South, I do think the Colts can match what they were last year, which is a really efficient offense at times, questionable defense with sort of a B- overall roster. I think they could get to 8 or 9 wins again. So if they're just sort of like an average to slightly below average football team, and the Titans are improved, let's say 6, 7, 8 wins, ballpark, and Houston is slightly improved and Jacksonville's as good, this has the makings of one of the better divisions in football, which is a crazy thing to say. Now, famous words in March, of course, or I guess we're in April now. In April. So I like, and I believe in Stroud. Yeah, Tripoli's asking, do you believe in Stroud? Like, how many quarterbacks come in, have a really solid, exciting rookie year, take a step back as a sophomore, and then blossom into a true starting quarterback? There are moments where Stroud makes no sense, but the amount of efficient football play that I think he can deliver on an offense and with that much talent around him, I think you got to err on the side of them being pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, one of my comps on CJ Stroud dating back to his time at Ohio State was Jared Goff. And I think there is a lot of Jared Goff in him, which is guy who's good enough to take you pretty far, but there's going to be questions if he can take you all the way. He's still that same guy. He's very talented. I think he has a chance to be successful in every game. There are some games he might not be competitive.
His playoff mistakes were almost like unlucky. Like the number of mistakes that continued to happen is crazy. I actually do like the Goff comparison because I don't think Goff drives the offense. I think Goff can be a really dependable piece of a larger offense. I don't think he is the system. I think he can be a part of a system. And I think that's probably where Stroud is. He's like one of the higher end system quarterbacks, if that's what you want to call it. As Callahan, one of the smartest things Brian Callahan ever said was that there's only like 4 or 5 quarterbacks who are the system. Everyone else is a part of the system. And of course, you know who those guys are. It's Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, etc. So, Sam Darnold type. I think Sam Darnold actually is a fair comp as well. Like, will be good on a good team and will be questionable on a bad team. And that's.
But could Sam Darnold ever win a Super Bowl?
I don't know. Should the Titans have signed Sam Darnold? Question mark.
And the show will answer this at 2 p.m. on the 440
Tape it too. Tape it too. All right. What you got coming up? I know you're working on stuff that you can't tell us. It's all super secret what you're working on.
I didn't say it's super secret. I just said it's not done yet. I will say that in the next couple of weeks, you will see a story from me that is a long read on somebody whose name comes up on every single edition of this show, but maybe is a little bit more shrouded in mystery than some other people. So I am having a lot of fun working on that. And then another thing, a call to the listeners who have stuck it out all the way through. I am working on a couple of stories for the off season about ticketing and fan belief and fan interpretation as the Titans migrate into a new stadium. If anybody listening is...
Did you go to the open house yesterday?
I did, yeah. If anybody listening is a PSL holder, is a season ticket holder, is a former PSL or season ticket holder who elected not to, or is a future PSL or season ticket holder who has been swayed by the advertising and the advances in the new stadium, my email, nsus@gannett.com. You can find it just about at the bottom of every single story I write. Please send me an email. I would love to talk to you about your thought decision-making process of why you did or why you didn't choose to carry over or make new decisions about the new stadium, because I'm fascinated by the decision-making and thought process of all of you people. So if you have stories you would like to tell about why or why not you are engaging with the new Nissan Stadium, please reach out.
Do you believe that almost all seats will be PSL and season ticket holders and that it's going so well like they're telling us it is? Or do you think they're having open houses because they need to sell more?
I do believe that almost every seat in the house will be a PSL. Do I believe it is going as well as they are saying?
That's where I'm at.
Potentially, it is a question of, are they doing this because they're not selling well, or are they doing this because there's limited inventory and they want to create competition for the limited inventory? Both are plausible. But either way, this isn't just talking to fans. There are a lot of voices in this story that are going to tell a lot. So
I want to know, like, the first thing that came to mind about your first story that I'm sure you're not going to tell me about, but like is Will Levis. Is the name that came to mind to me, even though he's fairly exposed generally by both media and his own marketing strategies. Is it off the field or is it in the run?
We'll talk off air.
Okay. All right. Juicy. Okay. All right. Thanks to Sinkers Beverages for supporting us. Tennessean.com for good journalism. Thank you guys all for being in the comment section. Please, incrowd@sinkersbeverages.com. Use that email address, RSVP. Please come out to the draft party. It's going to be a ton of fun. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be there's going to be lots of cool stuff that you're going to get as a part of that experience, and you'll feel great about it because every single penny. Not only will you feel great because you'll be in human contact with other humans in real life, which is good for your health, but also you will be helping children of Middle Tennessee. So please go RSVP to the draft party Thursday and Saturday nights. Thursday and Saturday night coming up on April 23rd and April 25th. It's going to be a lot of fun. Cannot wait to see all of you guys out there. For Nick, I'm Braden. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you next week.